I'm scared of my dad. I think he turned insane. Just 1 year ago, we were a happy family. But then my dad had an accident at work where he fell off a ladder and hit his head. He spent 2 weeks inside the hospital to recover. But when he came back home, he was a different person. First, he took my mom aside and told her she wasn't allowed to teach dance classes anymore. My mom said, "What? Why not?" And my dad responded, "Your students only want to seduce you so they can sleep with you. But not anymore. From now on, you are my obedient housewife, and you do what I tell you to do." I've never seen my mom scared. She had been a dance teacher for more than 20 years. This was crazy, but it got worse. My dad started to criticize my mom on her looks and other things. He said, "Don't wear that makeup. It looks ugly on you." Or, "Don't always smile. It looks terrible." I could see how much his words hurt my mom, but she loved him so much she didn't speak up to him. At one point, my dad convinced my mom to start taking medication against depression. He said those little pills would help her, but the opposite was the case. My mom immediately turned into a lifeless zombie. Suddenly, she rarely spoke and never smiled. When we ate for dinner, she would keep quiet and look at her dish. It was painful to see my evil dad turn my cheerful mom into this lifeless servant. I begged her to stop taking the medication, but she only responded, "It's good for me. It's good for your dad." I was furious and confronted my dad. I screamed, "Leave my mom alone! You're destroying her life!" My dad didn't like that I was speaking up to him. He said, "Do you know what I've done for you? Look at your ugly dress. Who bought that for you? I did, but you don't appreciate how hard I work for this family." I responded by screaming, "Mom bought me this dress and she said it's beautiful. I won't allow you to give her any more of those evil pills." My dad was angry too, and that's why he got a big axe, went to my room, and chopped down my door into little pieces. He said, "That's what you get for being a disobedient daughter." But I knew that taking away my privacy was all part of his plan to take complete control over our family. That's why I wasn't surprised when he came to my room the next day and installed a camera with an integrated loudspeaker. He said he would watch me 24/7 from his smartphone to make sure I was behaving. I thought he was bluffing and tried to ignore the camera. But whenever I laid down on my bed to relax, my dad would speak through the loudspeaker and say, "Go study for school or I'll take away your smartphone." I felt like he was watching me non-stop. And one morning before school, he even told me that my outfit looked ugly and I should change it. It was so creepy because I didn't know if he had watched me changing my clothes a few minutes earlier. But worse were the psychological effects. Being watched non-stop was super stressful because I could never relax. And then my dad took me to a doctor and told him I was severely depressed and needed medication to battle my anxiety. I was shocked and said, "No, that's not true. I'm perfectly well." Luckily, the doctor believed me. My dad was furious and punished me by taking away my smartphone and laptop. He said I would have to study for school non-stop until I finally became a good and obedient daughter. I'm not sure if parents are allowed to make their kids study all day from morning until evening, because my back hurts so much after sitting hours and hours in my chair. If I rested my head on the desk for just a few minutes, I would hear my dad screaming, "Go back to work or you'll be punished even worse." I realized that my dad had achieved his goal. He had complete control over my mom and I. He did it by tyrannizing us and making our lives hell. I felt my only option left was to run away. That's why I called my mom to my room. I told her we had to run away because Dad was destroying our family. But she said she had promised to stay with Dad in good as in bad times. And then she just left my room again. I felt so helpless. And then I had an idea. Instead of defending myself against my dad, I should start attacking him and fight fire with fire. That's why I woke up in the middle of the night and creeped into my parents' bedroom. There, I took my dad's phone and went outside. I knew his password, and maybe I could find something on there that I could use against him. And bingo, I found a SMS conversation that said, "See you in 20 minutes at the Four Seasons Hotel." I wrote down the number of that person and called it up the next day to find out who it was. Someone picked up and said, "Hey, Crystal here. Who am I talking to?" I said, I found your number in a phone and then she said, "Oh, sorry, sweetie. Did your husband cheat on you with me? I'm sorry, but I'm only a dancer, so don't be mad at me." I hung up and ran to my mom to tell her about what happened. But she was so on her medication, she didn't even care. She said, "As long as he is happy, I am happy too." And then she continued to sleep. But this time I wouldn't give up. I called my aunt over. Then we drove my mom into the forest. We rented a small house so my mom could get off her medication. Once she was back to normal, we had a conversation. I told my mom she had to break up with Dad to rescue our family. She didn't seem convinced, but then I brought a special guest. I had invited Crystal over to tell my mom what she and Dad had done together. When my mom finally realized my dad had cheated on her, she broke down in tears. It was hard to watch, but that's exactly what she needed. And finally she said, "Yes, I have to break up with him." We all went together into my dad's house. When he saw us, he was so mad he screamed, "Where have you been? Where have you been?" My mom looked very nervous, but she plucked up all her courage and said, "I'm sorry, but I'm gonna break up with you. Your behavior hurts both your daughter and me." For a few seconds, my dad looked shocked, but then he started screaming, "You gonna leave me after all those years we spent together? After all the sacrifices I made for you?" My dad was clearly manipulating my mom, and I got so angry, I screamed back at him, "Why don't you tell Mom how you cheated on her with Crystal?" My dad responded, "You gonna believe our daughter? She's been trying to destroy our family for months." But my mom said, "I've met Crystal, and I know it's true. You've met up with her several times." This time, my dad didn't know how to respond, and my mom had enough time and confidence to gather her stuff. Afterward, we all moved into my aunt's apartment, and I thought we could finally be a happy family again. But my mom still looked miserable. I told her to go back and teach dance classes again, because that has always been her favorite thing to do. But she said all she wanted to do was see my dad again. I was devastated, but it got worse. A few hours later, she said, "Hey, sweetie, I'm always gonna love you, you know that? But I'm gonna move in with Dad again, and I want you to stay here with your aunt. That will be the best for all of us." I couldn't believe it. My mom wanted to leave me for my evil dad. Did she love him so much? None of it made any sense. But this time, I knew I couldn't do anything. She just left, and we didn't talk for months, even though I missed her so much. That's why I went over to my parents' house. My dad opened the door wearing a weird outfit. He said, "Good day, how can I help you?" I told him I wanted to see Mom, and luckily, he let me in. But the house looked different. There were weird symbols all over the walls. When I saw my mom, she was also wearing a weird outfit. I couldn't hold back and said with tears in my eyes, "I've missed you so much, Mom." But she just replied, "It's okay. How can I help you?" I said, "Why are you talking so weird? What's up with your outfit? What is going on?" And then my dad said, "For many years we have lived as sinners, but now we found our Creator." Then he gave me a book with one of those symbols on it. I took it back home and read it the same day from beginning to end. That's when I knew my parents had joined a cult. I did some more internet research and found out that the cult was a big scam. They basically tricked their followers into giving 30 to 50% of their salary to the cult in exchange for redemption. The next day, my parents invited me to come back to their house. I gladly accepted their invitation, hoping we would reunite as a family. But that wasn't the case. There was a man with them, and my parents told me to talk to him. I sat in front of him, and he asked me if I'd read the book my dad had given to me. I said yes, and he said, "Now that you know the truth, you are in great danger. Satan hates people learning about the truth. He will send his demons to find you. Your only way to be safe is by going through the process of reincarnation." Okay, I'm no dummy. I immediately realized that he was trying to scare me, so I would join his stupid cult. The only problem was that I knew demons didn't exist. That's why I ran to my mom and said, "Please, Mom, don't tell me you believe in this stupid cult. They only want to take your money. You know that demons don't exist. Come on, let's get out of here." But my mom kept her fake smile on her face and said, "It's okay. You will understand the truth someday." Then my dad said to me, "You're not ready yet. Please leave our house." All that happened 2 years ago, and I haven't seen my parents since. I only know that they have sold their house and moved somewhere else. but they never cared to visit or call me. It's sad. I still miss my mom so much. She was such a beautiful person. But I also knew I had to move on, and that's what I did. Thank you for listening to my story.